In what way prohibition is violating human rights?
Well, again, I mean, here we have something that's classified as a euphoric, and we have governments making it illegal for us to be happy. That's already absurd on fundamental grounds. But now that we know that being happy is a manifestation of being healthier, and we know that cannabis makes us healthier, that it's an anti-aging drug, that it kills cancer, prevents Alzheimer's, etc., 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 inhibits all age-related illnesses by virtue of how it manipulates free radical production, which is the heart of all inflammatory illnesses, and which is fundamentally, on the most basic metabolic level, regulated by our endocannabinoid system that controls everything in your body from conception until death. So your immune system, digestive system, circulatory system, bones, skin, everything in you is regulated by the pot that you make. How do you make them? Out of essential fatty acids. So when a doctor tells you, oh, we need more studies, I don't know about marijuana, and then he turns around and says, go eat some omega-3 fatty acids, they're good for your heart, he doesn't understand that they're being made into pot. Your body's pot is being made out of those omega-3s. Those are the same molecules that we find in mother's milk, which should give you a hint that nature has chosen this system for a very special role, because mammals are known for childcare, and we give, the first thing a mother does is gives her newborn infant a little bit of pot to protect his brain, to get him hungry, to relax him after the trauma of childbirth. And if you eliminate that or don't have it, the infant will starve to death, literally, failure to thrive syndrome. You can mimic that in knockout mice that can't get high because of their genetic changes that have been made, so they are experimentally totally on high. Well, aside from dying early and being too nervous to do anything, you know, they can't relearn things. There's a whole host of symptoms that come from lack of cannabis activity. It's there because we need it, and we not only need it in some trivial way, it's central to the very progress of humanity.
When we grow cannabis, we give attention to the plant, we collect knowledge and experiences, and after all, we are also energetically connected to the plant. Should this process be recognized officially as a healing process, or do you think that healing process starts when doctor prescribes us something?
I was going to say, what do you think? Because it's so obvious to me.
Well, again, you know, at this point, I think the bulk of what doctors do, other than emergency care, life-saving emergency care, they're great at, orthopedics, great at in many cases, where they totally fall short is when they try to manipulate the state of health with pharmaceuticals, when they don't understand what they're doing. And they don't understand what they're doing because they don't understand how life works. We wouldn't bring our cars to mechanics who didn't know how a car worked, and yet we bring our bodies to doctors who don't know how we work and who've been trained by a pharmaceutical industry that's sole function is really to make money. So what they do is they target symptoms with compounds that are not part of life's flow, and as a consequence you get some minimal relief because they only look for statistically significant relief, which could be so insignificant as to be ludicrous, and in many cases is. We've got to transit into how our bodies feel, being connected to the flow of energy that creates and expands and evolves life, and provides us with our opportunities for health and for being part of an ongoing future. Health is not individual health. Health is family health, community health, planet health, and to think otherwise is dumb.
They would like to standardize all individuals. They would like that we are all the same, but we are not all the same. So following this, there should be also freedom to access to cannabis. There shouldn't be such obstacles like there. There should be cannabis available at the pharmacy, and there should be cannabis available in the garden for those who need it and for those who can't afford it also.
We know about vibration. We are full of electricity, you know, our neurons transmit it. It's not just purely chemical process. And there are a lot of things we also don't understand. Some people to heal will require a lot of support, good environment, maybe support from the family, maybe support from partners, and maybe connection with the plant they grow. And we shouldn't be stopping it. Researching it is a big challenge.
And it shouldn't be that complicated. People are allowed to grow their own plants for their own self-consumption, not necessarily for strictly therapeutic purposes, although we can understand therapeutic as something more general like well-being. But if you consider like pharmacologically, some people are allowed to grow their plants, but that shouldn't avoid the possibility of having also other preparations that are available in pharmacies or dispensaries. So I think the model probably can be combined. One doesn't exclude the other.
If endocannabinoid system regulates, like we heard yesterday, everything in the body since conception till death, then this concerns all fields in the medicine, right?
I put up a slide of the efficacy of cannabis being a desired effect in an unprecedented number of illnesses. Later in the talk, I put up a slide of the crossover to the various receptor systems in our brain. THC and CBD affect virtually every neurotransmitter we have, from the one we all know and love, dopamine, to serotonin, to GABA, to acetylcholine receptors are all affected by cannabinoids. That's why it affects so many illnesses.
And probably some medical practices and treatments should change, knowing about endocannabinoid system.
Everything will change. That's why I say it's a revolution in modern medicine.
Yeah.
If indeed we get that crazy notion out of our mind that one single molecule synthesized is going to have anything like the activity of a whole extract full of different compounds that all synergize together. What I mean by the revolution in modern medicine is the entourage effect, or the synergistic effect of many different molecules having, number one, less side effects, better efficacy, and much safer. The only two things that regulatory bodies look for: one is that it's safe, and two is that it's efficacious. Safety of cannabis is pretty obvious. People don't die from it. But the efficacy of cannabis is so broad, it affects so many different things in our physiology. It's the overall regulator of regulators. It balances us. And we should be eating it every day. We should be sold in green leafy bins in marketplaces. You can pick it up and take it home and eat it with your salad. Doesn't taste very good.
Well, I have a very fundamental way of looking at it because of the physics, which comes from the work of Nobel laureate Ilya Prigogine, that shows flowing energy can organize matter. And that's what's going on. The planet receives energy from sunlight. We extract information, potential out of that. We use that to organize the planet, the evolving biosphere. We're part of a 4 billion year old chemical reaction. And we have the illusion that we're something else, that we're some collection of individual people. No, we're just chemical probes that are in individual form. But that's a natural way that chemistry works when you continue to evolve flow-dependent structures that keep increasing their complexity, going from the prebiotic soup to the emergence of life, to the evolution of life, to the emergence of vertebrates, where we first see the CB1 receptor and the formalization of that endocannabinoid system. And what has to be recognized, and is not generally accepted, but will have to be, is that there are two fundamental methods by which cells utilize their energy. There's complications beyond the simplicity that I'm going to give, but this is the easiest way to see it. When we need energy to do things, to accomplish complex biochemistry tasks, to think, to talk, to do anything, it's always driven by calcium because of the nature of the primordial soup and how life evolved. But it also involves the utilization of efficient energy mechanisms, producing mechanisms, meaning the electron transport system, which is a highly evolved, sophisticated mechanism that is necessary to produce energy efficiently. And if you want to do a lot of things, like become human, you have to have that ability. But that same ability is also a danger because it creates free radicals, and a single free radical molecule, one time in one cell can kill you. And we have 15 trillion cells sustaining 20,000 of those damages every day. So what I'm suggesting is that a significant amount of our biochemical complexity is devoted to allowing us to make energy efficiently by fine-tuning the free radical production that the CB1 receptor does by modulating calcium and other ion channels. Whereas the CB2 receptor turns off that process in order for the cells to fix themselves, because while they were busy doing things via CB2 activation, they were damaging themselves. So if you don't have the right balance, you keep accumulating damage. That's called aging. All right, aging is our approach back to the far from equilibrium phase change, going in the opposite direction. One gave us life, one gives back that organization into the universe. And we would like to maintain our organization, which is our health. Our health is distance from equilibrium. It has nothing to do with how old you are. I'm going to be 70 years old now, and I feel a lot better than I used to.
Endocannabinoid system seems to be not an important topic in Slovenian medical profession. Can somebody treat professionally with cannabis without knowledge of endocannabinoid system?
As a scientist, I read the scientific literature peer-reviewed. I remember the day they reported the discovery of the receptor. And there's been a huge mushroom explosion in scientific literature coming out on what we now call the endocannabinoid system. It's one of the biggest medical finds of the last century next to DNA and insulin. This is a major medical find. Raphael Mechoulam, who is accredited for discovering THC in the first place, he's now nominated for a Nobel Prize. This is a major discovery. And if I was a medical doctor, I would be educating myself just out of curiosity. They should be teaching it in universities right now. It's important.
So there is a significant amount of knowledge, although not as much as we have for other systems.
Sure.
And I think it would be interesting to include that in the formation of the medical doctors, because it's true that they know about other systems that are important, but they don't know about this. Nonetheless, I agree with you. There are many drugs that are being used, and then the people don't know very well the mechanism, but still they are being used. So I think it's important that the people have a general knowledge on that, particularly medical doctors or professionals of medicine.
How was this discovery of endocannabinoid system accepted and discussed in professional circles? How did, let's say, medical profession respond to this discovery in the last 25 years?
Well, they've been incredibly slow because we live in a world of bureaucracy and rules, and a significant portion of what a doctor or a scientist does is deal with the bureaucracy that's imposed by our governments. And we need kind of these extra rules because we have created a whole medical establishment and pharmaceutical establishment and regulatory establishment and laws that are all based on false reality. Fake medicine, fake news. And so we live in a world that is not grounded in reality and motivated by the physics of life. If you're fighting the physics of life, it makes no sense. You're fighting Mother Nature. So prohibition and a lot of the greed-oriented protective nonsense that governments have put in place because of power and money, they are now undergoing a revolutionary change because the whole chemistry set of the planet is undergoing this change. We as humans are undergoing this change as we become the next layer of humanity. And my perspective of molecular biology is very different than the generally accepted one, in that I believe metabolism creates life, not metabolism being a property of life. And therefore, we've got to understand how we can regulate energy flow to get desired outcomes. And cannabis is very critical because it touches everything in our body. It touches our soul. The mind-body connection is cannabis. And I don't believe our brains could have evolved to the complexity that they are at without the CB1 receptor modulating free radical production via retrograde transmission and other phenomena. And in doing so, that allows us to stay in that efficient energy producing mode longer because we're not producing as many free radicals as we would without an active cannabinoid system. And it's for that very reason, as we keep generating more complexity, we keep needing more and more cannabinoids. So it's a very interesting phenomena that's going on here because the planet and the biochemistry of humanity, forget about individuals, the dispersion of human biochemistry in the chemical reaction of the planet is reaching a critical level. And that critical level is going to promote and create the next level of humanity, because from my perspective, it's the metabolism that we select for. So whatever metabolic profile is giving us survival is the one that's selected for whenever we come in with any selective agent. And as a consequence, we keep increasing cannabinoid activity. So we have to be able to understand how we work and start to use our minds so that we take in the energy, the information, in a fashion that allows us to take in the food and the other chemicals in a fashion that keeps moving us further from equilibrium in a health-driven mode. We can go further from equilibrium by becoming fatter, but that's just your cells trying to protect you from consuming too many carbohydrates and making too many free radicals. That's not a healthy move further from equilibrium. That's just like, becoming more wood or coal or gas. Instead, we need to become further from equilibrium in an organizational fashion. Our minds and how we interact with one another and how we interact with the planet has to be guided by the principles that have created us rather than the artifacts of the stupidity of the illusions that we've created in this so-called reality that we now live in. Fake news, fake science, fake medicine.
They're not even sure what it is because they've come out of med schools that teach a whole different philosophy and a different type of medicine. I'm educating them often. In my injury, I educated a whole bunch of nurses and doctors because I wouldn't shut up about it.
It depends. I have experience with medical doctors, for instance with oncologists, that because they saw the data that we have on animal models, they say, well, we want to try this in humans because if it works, we may help people. So they were very open-minded. Then they learned about the endocannabinoid system, they read our articles, they discovered that there was a scientific basement for trying to do the trials, and then they decided to do it. So I think there are people that are open-minded and people maybe that are not. So we need to convince, in general, the medical community that this is an important part that they need to investigate, and sometimes it will be useful, sometimes not. But
all around the world, there is a need for medical cannabis, and I think medical community is, in average, is slow as a snail, and they are not doing the job. They have to do it. They have to be advocates of patients. We know it's an urgency. We know that thousands and thousands of people are in pain because they don't have their medicine available and they are not really doing their job. They are too slow, as snails.